This episode is brought to you by VPP Simplified. Now you can get element by element guidance and progress tracking for your VPP journey. Every aspect of the VPP requirements in one easy-to-use interactive spreadsheet. It has sub-element explanations and examples. It has a stoplight status check. It includes 3-step verification of completion for each sub-element. You even get a notes section to compile your application language. And it even comes with graphs to show current state and progress moving forward. Look, achieving VPP star status can be tough, but understanding what is required to get there can be simplified. This gap tool will help you do that. Again, go to vppsimplified.com for more information.
Welcome to the Safety Pro Podcast, where we help you manage workplace safety one episode at a time. And now, your very own Safety Pro, Blaine J. Hoffman.
It's time for another episode of the Safety Pro Podcast. Today, I'm going to talk about a lean tool that we can use for safety. And many of you may have heard of this, you may not. So I'm going to introduce you to the 5 why process. So what is the 5 why process exactly? It is a technique that it was originally developed for the Toyota Motors Company and was used within that corporation during the evolution of its now famous manufacturing methodologies. If you've read the book, The Toyota Way, you'll know what I'm talking about. Essentially, it's a way of defining a problem and breaking down the contributing factors to get to a root cause or several root causes. You essentially include the who, what, when, and then you ask, why is this happening? And when you answer that question, you ask, why did that happen? And because this other thing happened, because this happened, and you keep going until you get to a point where you can no longer control something, and then you just back up one step in the process for a possible root cause. That was just an overview, but I'll talk a little more in depth about how to do it. But essentially, you want to kind of cascade in a logical way from the actual problem down to and through root causes, trying to identify systemic or true root causes. So the 5 why, of course, as you can tell, is a critical component of problem solving and training. It is delivered as part of the sort of the induction into the TPS or Toyota Production System. The company used this a lot. The architect of the TPS, Tachi Ono, described the 5 why method as the basis of Toyota's scientific approach. By repeating why 5 times, the nature of the problem as well as its solution could become more clear. So this process, of course, has been used beyond Toyota. It's used within, Kaizen, lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, and now environmental health and safety. So what I want to do is I want to focus on how we can use 5 why in problem solving to uncover root causes to incidents, accidents, near misses, or just concerns that are identified. How could this have, been allowed or permitted, or, so on and so forth. So we're going to get into a little bit of how to actually do the 5 why. Keep in mind, this is also used in, aviation, nuclear, food industries throughout the world in root cause analysis. And it's actually required by the safety assurance components of safety management systems in various regulated industries. So there are many reasons why we can use it. Some of them include to simply help identify root causes of a problem, to determine the relationship between different root causes of a problem. That's often overlooked. I want to stress that. You can determine or help determine the relationship between different root causes of a problem by going through this process. It's also one of the simplest tools to use. It's really easy to complete and doesn't really require a whole lot of statistical analysis for folks that, get caught up or bogged down with that kind of data. It's a really easy tool. You can train shop floor workers, general employees to use the 5 why tool. So when would we be using the 5 why? Obviously, when problems involve human factors or interactions. You also would use this in just general day-to-day life. It can be used within or outside of a safety management system. So you can use it for business problems, obviously for quality problems, personnel issues, problems with processes in manufacturing, and the like. It also works well when brainstorming causes, when you're using the cause and effect diagram or a fishbone diagram, which I will talk about later in another episode. But what you essentially want to do is, in a brainstorming or tabletop session, inevitably you'll have folks just throwing out ideas like, well, I think it could have been this, it could have been that, it could have been this other thing. I know why it's happened before is because of that. You write all those things down. You do a 5 why on all of them if you really want to get to some true root causes. You have to identify or run down all of the potential root causes you've identified, or scenarios or situations or events that you identify through brainstorming. So you want to begin by writing down a specific problem. So you got to write the issue down. This helps you sort of formalize the problem and describe it completely, because you get to step back, take a look at it, and say, okay, does this make sense, right? You use a whiteboard, paper, doesn't matter. Post-it notes work well, especially in a group setting. So it'll help the team focus on the same problem. You have to start somewhere. So I'll give you a couple of examples. A bad problem statement or question would be, why did Bob break the machine? Okay, so that would be a bad one, because then you're going to go down the wrong path. Bob wasn't paying attention, but maybe it's more of, why did the machine fail? And then you identify all the contributing, even the human factors. But by starting out with a bias, like, why did Bob break the machine? That kind of sends you down the wrong path. It gets everybody focused on the wrong thing. You should focus on the process, not the person. The person or persons will be brought up naturally through the course of breaking down a process and all of the things that go into that process or that can impact or touch that process, right? But you want to start with something that's unbiased, but you want to be descriptive. You want to be specific about the problem you're trying to solve. Ask why the problem happens and write the answer down right below your problem statement. Now, if the answer you just gave doesn't identify the root cause of the problem that you wrote down in the first step, then you ask why again and write that answer down. You will loop back until the team is in agreement, of course, that the problem's root cause has been identified. Again, this may take fewer or more than 5 why. 5 why is just sort of, the catchy name, and on average, it took 5 whys to solve problems. Sometimes it's more. Oftentimes, it could be 2 or 3 whys. It's important to choose the correct first question. Remember, I said that before. You have to choose the first question correctly. Choosing the wrong first why could result in the analysis of something other than the problem that was intended to be analyzed. Asking why again 5 times is not mandatory. It may take more, it may take fewer. 5 whys, it's the name of the tool, and you should continue to ask why until you feel that you or the team have sufficiently exhausted the analysis to the root cause, right? And again, as I stated earlier, you may be onto something when your answer is something you can no longer control. You back up one. Here's an example. This is a case, it was textbook case, so I'm kind of stealing this from a text that gave a pretty good example. When the cost of having covered bridges or stairs is the root cause to passengers slipping on ice. So this is from the aviation industry. So let's say you have passengers slipping on the ice and you want to kind of do a 5 why. So why are they slipping? 1, because there's ice on the steps. 2, why is there ice on the steps? Steps were wet due to inclement weather. Why? Well, disembarking in the open air conditions. That's why. Okay, well, why were they doing that? Because there are no covered bridges or steps available. Why aren't there any covered bridges or steps available? Well, the cost to store the covered bridges or steps is too high. So, again, that's just an example how you can uncover the root or a root cause of an incident. Here's one that I will also give you another example. And this one was from, in my past, helping with an incident. There was a forklift that had been leaking hydraulic fluid, and an employee had slipped on it. One of the office workers walked out of the office area doorway into the production area and slipped and fell carrying some boxes. So immediately the team went to well, why did she fall? She was wearing the wrong shoes. And okay, that may have been a contributing factor, but you want to be careful when you go to, and they stopped there. And so they didn't even address why was there oil on the floor. So what we did is we reassembled the team, and I kind of asked a different question. I should say I asked a different why and answered it slightly differently. Why did the employee slip? The first answer wasn't she was wearing the wrong shoes. The first answer was there was oil on the floor. So you can start with that. That's our problem. There's oil on the floor. That we shouldn't have oil on the floor. So why don't we start with that as our problem statement? So we started with why was there oil on the floor in general? So you can do this a couple different ways. So from there, we said, well, the forklift was leaking. Why was the forklift leaking? And, it caused us to stop the group effort, get on the phone, contact the company that services the forklifts, and we soon discovered that it was serviced or maintenanced right over there over the weekend where it was parked. And the service tech had left some oil on the floor. So we filled all these things out. And so you can get to the point where you're going down the wrong path and you don't actually solve the real problem. The real problem in that case was there was oil on the floor, hydraulic oil fluid on the floor. That was the problem. So this is a general, shop environment where this office individual walked out is a common area that has vending machines, a time clock. This employee has to go out there frequently to collect time cards, to do payroll, has her break out there at the little table. That is not a production area immediately outside the door she walked through. So they had previously had a policy of, you weren't required to wear safety-toed shoes or slip-resistant shoes or boots coming right out of that door. So it wasn't fair to say, oh, well, if she just had the right shoes on, this wouldn't have happened, and, brush your hands of it and move on and, problem solved. You didn't solve anything. So what we had to do is we had to demonstrate how you can do a 5 why for why was she wearing the wrong shoes, or you can do a 5 why was there hydraulic fluid on the floor. You can do a separate 5 why on why was service or maintenance done on the forklift right outside that area. Come to find out, it was convenient. There was an outlet nearby and had good lighting, and that's where the maintenance tech contractor set up and pulled the forklift around and did it there. But if you start with the right problem statement or question, you can get to all of those. Okay, but if you're biased and phrase the question the wrong way, you won't get to any of those. You'll stop short. So there was an example of it took more than 5. From that event, we discovered that the maintenance tech was new, had not worked on that model of forklift before, and didn't have the right O-ring that he needed, apparently. There was something more to it. I don't even recall the specifics at this point, but it boiled down to the technician. The forklift was allowed to leak hydraulic fluid over the weekend after he had left. The other thing is They put up little pylons to prevent any of the forklifts from getting beyond into the area, the general walking area of the break room and the time clock and the vending machines. And that will also help ensure that that work area, that floor, is maintained. They put the yellow stripes, down on the floor as well, and that way they eliminate the possibility of that occurring again. They also implemented a daily walk at the end of the shift through the warehouse area all the way up to the time clock, where they look for things like pieces of the skid have broken off with the forks or something, and driving the forklifts around all day, picking up debris, throwing stuff in the trash. And they designated an area right under the main warehouse office, the steps that go up right under there. They put in a little cage down below where they can do maintenance on the forklifts, and that's where the designated spot is. The other thing they discovered from this process was, had the operator adequately performed the inspection of the forklift prior to the shift, like you're required to do, he would have found this. He was running late, clocked in late. There was a truck waiting to go. They needed to load this truck up and get it out of the bay, so he jumps on the forklift, takes off, and doesn't see hydraulic fluid on the floor. So asking the right question will get you a lot of little things you have to do. And it's sort of Swiss cheese, right? You take one slice of Swiss cheese and hold it up, you're going to see holes. Stuff's going to get through. Those would be failures or gaps in your safety health management system. So you can't just tell her to wear different shoes. You still got holes in that slice of Swiss cheese, if that's your layer of defense. So what you do is you say, yeah, we're going to cordon off that area. We're going to designate it as no work to be performed. We're going to put up physical barriers. We're going to we're going to address why the employee was running late, because when they're running late, they skip their inspection. How come the supervisor wasn't on top of this? We went through the records and there was only one inspection turned in the last 3 months, and the employee was hired like 5 months prior or something like that. So this employee was late several times already, and according to the handbook we dusted off and opened up, he had already violated, hit their 4 times or whatever it was, the tardies that he was allowed in his probationary period. They're not enforcing any of their just employment rules, let alone safety rules. So we uncovered a whole host of things that they had to do, each being a slice of that Swiss cheese that you then would lay on top of each other, layer by layer by layer. So when you have a total safety and health management system, or operating system, or business practices layered like that, you hold that up, you won't see any daylight through those individual slices, right? You will effectively have caught all of the things with other layers. You need that layered process to stop some of these things from occurring. You cannot just stop at one. So when you go through your 5 why, you may branch off. You may have a branch of another 5 why that you have to do on an answer that you just, gave for a previous problem. So it's a very powerful tool. It can get complex. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but you can write this stuff down on a whiteboard. You can start with a 5 why with a problem statement if you phrase it the right way, and your answer can send you in 2 or 3 different directions. You just need to branch off effectively and run those to ground as well. And that's what we were able to do with that last example. We were able to uncover a whole host of problems that were just falling apart, and that all contributed in some small way, some more than others, but all contributed. And you have to, if you want to fix the one problem of hydraulic fluid being on the floor, you have to fix all of the ones we identified. So in that case, and in many cases, it's a myth that you're getting to a root cause. You may have many contributing factors that you identify. All of them have to be addressed. So try the 5 why tool. It's very effective. If you follow the link in the show notes, I will have an example of a 5 why worksheet for you to download. And so just follow that link. and fill out your the information there, your name and email, and an email will be sent to you with the download for that file. And it's a very effective tool. It can be very, very powerful when dealing with post-incident injury or near miss in incidents that occur in the workplace where you need to identify root causes, and especially if you're in a regulated part of the business, that you have to show proof that you have a problem-solving tool that you're using. The 5 why process will work for you. Again, one tool. It's just one tool of many that you can use. I hope to be able to dig into some of these other tools. I mentioned the fishbone diagram. I definitely want to do a podcast episode on the fishbone. Again, that can be a very powerful tool. It has its application. It has its appropriate use. It's not useful for every scenario. So I will make sure I cover what this would not be good for or what it would be good for. But the 5 why, I wanted to start with this one because it's so basic. It's so easy to use, and you can use for any problem. Why does it take us so long to hire people? You do a 5 why on that. Why do people, after 6 months, half of our new hires leave and go to other companies? You can use it for business problems in general, not just safety and health problems, but certainly in the safety world, we want to look to some of these lean manufacturing tools and Six Sigma tools and say, hey, you guys, you're problem solvers by nature. That's what you do, right? In quality and in lean manufacturing, you identify and solve problems. Safety is no different, right? When you look at Six Sigma or quality, concerns, they're they've identified a failure in a process that they have to manage out of the process and eliminate. Well, an accident is a failure in our work process. An employee is performing a task that we have set up, and we probably have, based some sort of business forecast of how many parts or how much work can be produced in a shift based on employees' ability to stand there and do that job. And when they have an incident or an injury or something, an accident with machines, tools, or equipment, that's a failure. That's a stop in work that we have to then dive deep, and figure out what all the contributing factors so that we can eliminate it and continue on. So I'll tell every safety professional I talk to that has asked, hey, what can we do and what tools can we use to get to root causes? Do you have diagrams and worksheets? And I'm like, yeah, you're going to have to fill out the incident report, but don't rely on that to get to your root causes. You're going to use that incident report to kind of capture the energy and effort going into some of these other tools. Go talk to your quality and lean folks and ask them what problem-solving tools they use and they found that work really, really well, and then try using them for safety events. I'm telling you right now, you're going to be shocked and surprised if you haven't done this before, this way. You're going to be pleasantly surprised at how easy and how many issues you do uncover so that you can get to work solving those problems so that that event doesn't happen again. Again, link in the show notes. And don't forget our sponsor, VPP Simplified, and make sure you check that out as well if you do have any interest in partnering with OSHA. And, fill out the information for the 5 why template worksheet, and we'll get that going to you right away. Keep the emails coming. I've gotten a ton of emails off the last 2 with labels and chemicals in the workplace. I've got some answers going out in the next week or so, but keep the questions coming and the suggestions on future topics. And until next time, be safe.